News now also wants to make another presidential projection. In the state of West Virginia, ABC News projects that Mr. Reagan will pick up the 6 electoral votes there. Again, that's one of the only of the 6 states that went for Mr. Carter in 1980, normally a strong Democratic state, but the pre-election polls did show Mr. Reagan ahead, even though Walter Mondale and the Democrats had hoped they would do well in West Virginia. West Virginia, 6 electoral votes for Mr. Reagan.
Peter, I'd like to point out to our viewers this map over our shoulders here and explain what it is. The red states are states that we have projected having gone for Mr. Reagan. Red R. Reagan. That's why we chose red. The white states we have not yet projected either because their polls have not closed, as in the case of the western states, or in some not in the West, they're too close to call at this hour. As you see, there's New York, Massachusetts still out.
Pennsylvania was too close to call for a while, but it's now gone.
The blue dot on the top of the state of Virginia is the District of Columbia, which is the one area Walter Mondale has carried tonight. As you see, except for that, the map is all of those states we have projected. The map is entirely, totally red for Reagan.
Now, in just a minute, we are going to talk to a man who has seen a lot of time on the campaign trail this year, and it will be interesting to hear what he has to say about tonight. Senator Gary Hart of Colorado will join us right after this.
Project that the state of Massachusetts has gone for Ronald Reagan. Massachusetts, President Reagan, 13 electoral votes. Mr. Reagan barely carried, with a fraction of 1%, barely carried Massachusetts 4 years ago. And prior to that, as you will recall, when Nixon got his huge landslide, it was the only state that went for George McGovern. In Iowa, we project that Ronald Reagan has won the state in its 8 electoral votes. In Idaho, which he carried with 66% of the vote in 1980, in Idaho, we project that Mr. Reagan has again won the state and its 4 electoral votes. Here's the electoral total as it stands now. It is an all so far. Many states are still open, still voting. So far, it is almost a totally clean sweep for Reagan. The 3 for Mondale from the District of Columbia.
Welcome back. As we said, it is 10 o'clock here in the East, 8 o'clock Mountain Time, 7 o'clock in the Pacific. A number of states have still got polls open. Lots of things for you to vote on there, including the presidential race. We were talking in the last half hour about the state of Minnesota. We have not projected a presidential winner in the state of Minnesota. Mr. Mondale, at the moment, has a very slight lead, but we are, quite frankly, with 2% of the precincts coming in, saying that is presently too close.
Because it's indicative, it's getting tougher and tougher for Walter Mondale to believe that he can stop a 50-state sweep by Ronald Reagan. However, Mondale's home state of Minnesota has not yet been decided. That may be his last hope, the last wall to keep Ronald Reagan from getting a 50-state sweep. CBS News estimates, by the way, that about 91 million Americans will have cast ballots in the 1984 presidential election. That's close to 1980's level of turnout, which was only 52.6% of the voting age population.
In Minnesota, Walter Mondale has won his home state, and the first state he has won this evening. It's fairly close. It should be remembered, by the way, that Mondale has not actually lived in Minnesota for about 20 years. He's lived in Washington. But nevertheless, it's his home state. He grew up there. And there you see the first blue state on the ABC News map. Minnesota for Mondale. Only 3 states on the mainland of the U.S., 48 states, left white because we haven't been able to project them yet because they're still voting.
A concession statement by Walter Mondale. Let's see if we can pick up any of the sound. Doesn't look like or sound like there's going to be any concession statement, at least not just yet. Walter Mondale getting into an automobile, clearly, and perhaps headed out to his home. Mondale may be going to the convention center in St. Paul. As a matter of fact, as I hear the latest word from our correspondent, Susan Spencer, who's done such a terrific job of covering the whole Mondale campaign, is that he's probably on his way to the convention center in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and that we may hear a Mondale concession statement somewhere fairly soon. Now,
stay with us. We're about to take you on an exciting and bumpy ride. All eyes on Florida at this hour, Tim. Both campaigns made an enormous investment there. Project an important win for Vice President Al Gore. NBC News projects that he wins the 25 electoral votes in the state of Florida. That's great news in Nashville tonight.
That is a very, very, very important state for Al Gore. And now the pressure is on George W. Bush in Pennsylvania and Michigan.
The stunner at this hour is that we can call Al Gore the winner in the Wolverine state. And we're skipping ahead to Illinois. Al Gore the winner there.
These Midwest battleground states, which George Bush's campaign thought they were going to be very competitive in, they haven't won one yet. And with Michigan and Illinois and Pennsylvania too close to call, but you add Michigan and Illinois to Florida, and Al Gore's people must be feeling very good about now.
Big call, Tim. Pennsylvania goes to Vice President Al Gore. NBC News is projecting that Al Gore is the winner in Pennsylvania. That makes it, fair to say, all the more difficult for Governor Bush to put together a winning coalition here tonight. It's still not over by any means.
Here now, a CNN major battleground call. Governor Bush is the winner in Ohio, and he grabs the Buckeye State's 21 electoral votes.
This is a state that he absolutely had to have.
It's also a
CNN
state.
is making another call right now. Governor Bush moving very quickly in Tennessee, embarrassing Vice President Gore by snatching his state's 11 electoral votes.
And so we're pretty darn upbeat about things.
Okay, Governor Bush pretty darn upbeat about this.
As you can see, more than half of the vote has been counted so far, and at the moment, according to this, George W. Bush has a 5-point lead in Florida.
Stand by. CNN right now is moving our earlier declaration of Florida back to the too close to call column. This no longer is a victory for Vice President Gore. We're moving it back.
Should they break for Bush, the entire calculation of the last hour and a half changes dramatically.
Even now, they say they can win without Florida, but they don't believe they're going to have to.
You clearly understand it's advantage Bush, but it has been for quite some time. Can he close the deal? We just simply don't know. Bush has 240 electoral votes. Arkansas, President Bush, 6 electoral votes drop in Arkansas, and they go for Bush.
As we just gave Arkansas to Governor Bush, Al Gore can now not get to 270 unless he wins the state of Florida.
In the state of Florida, with 91% of the precincts reporting George W. Bush at 50%, Al Gore 48%.
They left themselves no room for error at all. So when they lost here in Tennessee and then the president's home state of Arkansas, now they have to win Florida, and of course they're losing right now.
George Bush, governor of Texas, will become the 43rd president of the United States at 18 minutes past 2 o'clock Eastern Time. CNN declares that George Walker Bush has won Florida's 25 electoral votes, and this should put him over the top.
90 million people voting, and look at the difference.
Claire Shipman, have they accepted the fact that they've lost the presidency tonight?
Tom, they have. In fact, I just talked to Gore's campaign chairman, Bill Daley. He said that Gore has, in fact, called President-elect Bush.
But again, we are told the vice president will concede the election in his brief remarks here tonight.
This is what you call close. This is the state of Florida. 99.87% of the vote has been counted so far. The Secretary of State has Al Gore trailing the president-elect in the state that proved to be pivotal by 565 votes.
Is that he has actually called George W. Bush and taken back his concession phone call.
The most significant point here, we're not seeing Governor Bush because Al Gore has conceded, rather has recanted that concession that he gave earlier on this evening. So stand by. I'll try to get a little bit more information, and I'll get it to you as soon as I can.
But this race is simply too close to call. And until the results, the recount is concluded and the results in Florida become official, our campaign continues.
Latest vote count in the state of Florida shows Governor Bush winning that state by more than 1,200 votes.
Tom, thank all of you for this long evening. It's going to be a long day ahead.
for us?
First and foremost, it's finally here.
Going into this night, where do we stand?
This is where we stood coming into the night, 268 to 204, so clearly an advantage for Secretary Clinton.
Take a look here. If Donald Trump wins tonight, no matter who they voted for, take a look at these numbers here. 21% say they'll be concerned. 37% say they'll be scared.
This is what both candidates want. They want to be living there starting January 20th of next year. Florida has been going back and forth, just changed again. It's only 11,000 vote lead just now. It changed.
Math on your feet. I like this.
The Empire State Building in New York City. Take a look at our running tally of the electoral vote. Anderson, this night is turning out to be a real nail-biter.
All along, the Trump campaign has been saying that Florida's a must-win for them. And I mean,
they can't win without it. Donald Trump will carry the state of Florida.
You know, I'm guessing that the people in Brooklyn, I can see their fingers
That's
probably.
The Hillary Clinton headquarters.
Yeah, fingers probably bleeding because there's no more nail to bite.
I wouldn't call anything encouraging for Hillary Clinton at the moment, to be honest with you, my friend.
Wolf, the scene here is so different than it was a few hours ago when people were happy and relaxed. I have been looking around the room at people who are stone-faced. Some of them have been crying.
This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president.
This is the people rising up saying it's time to listen to us. It's time to listen to us in Michigan and Wisconsin and work for the people.
Hillary Clinton has called Donald Trump to concede the race.